I have a quick moment, you
God,
guys.
you just screamed at me.
Sorry. This is my new kitty. Oops, oops, oops. She's a little wiggle worm. Okay, ready? Look at her. She's so cute. She's a little baby. She's looking
Fun
at you.
fact, this kitty pooped in her hand.
No, pooped in my fiance's hand, not my hand.
Well,
Anyways, her name is
Same thing.
Rhea. Rhea, because that is Saturn's second largest moon. And it matches our space theme because I have a cat named Nova and a cat named Luna. And now Rhea. My cats are cooler than yours. Anyways.
my dog is cooler than your cats, so don't be rude. You know what? Let's talk Fisher, Zilvaren, Saeris, all by myself. You know what I mean? Because at this moment, I don't know where Michaela is. She's MIA. I have a missing host. So you know what? I will be the host myself. Dink. Cheers, queen. My tea's kind of lukewarm. Probably make a new one. I mean, I probably have time. Alrighty, look, she's back. Imagine that. Welcome back to the podcast.
Welcome back to BookTeaTalk, the book podcast where two sisters read a book together and talk about it each week over a cup of tea. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Maddie. Today we are diving into Brimstone Chapters 21 through 27.
This section really expands both sides of the story again. We spend time with Fisher and Zilvaren as things start escalating in the wards, and back in Almontreath, Saeris is dealing with her runes, Quicksilver, and, honestly, some increasingly concerning levels of power.
We will be discussing spoilers throughout these chapters, so if you haven't read chapters 21 through 27, you may want to pause here.
Also, a reminder that if you have read ahead in the series, please keep any spoilers past what we discussed today out of the comments so that everyone can experience the story in real time with us.
Before we get into everything, though, the most important question of the episode: what tea are you drinking today? And I've been trying to guess, so I guess
You have.
Strawberry something. But I don't.
And then lemonade, which is also wrong.
Okay.
Today I am drinking Taylor's lychee and lime.
How nice. It's lychee, I think.
I don't know how you say it, but it's
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. I'm pretty sure it's lychee.
Anyways, what are you drinking today?
I was waiting for you to ask. Thank you for that.
You always are. Sometimes you don't even.
You know what? Fair. Today I'm drinking out of this Hello Gorgeous, or Good Morning Gorgeous, even though it's not the morning time. You don't know that. I'm drinking out of this mug, and what I am drinking is apple cinnamon tea.
I actually almost grabbed my apple cinnamon tea.
Well, you should have. We would have been twins.
That would have been funny, but Beck chose this one for me.
That would have been really funny if you did the apple cinnamon tea with our matching mugs. That would have been creepy.
That would have been really funny.
That would have been creepy. Bro. 10 out of 10.
That one is a good one. I do like apple cinnamon tea.
It's so good.
All right, and if you guys are enjoying following along with us, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next upload. All right, tea is ready. Notes are open, so let's talk about it.
Before we jump into chapter 21, we should probably take a second and remember where things left off in the last episode, because chapters 17 through 20 escalated really quickly.
Very. In Zilvaren, Fisher and Carrion were trapped in that ancient Alchemiran demon trap beneath the bell tower. The scorpions turned out to be the demon Joshin, and Fisher ended up bargaining with it just to keep both of them alive.
And that bargain came with a warning that still feels important at the moment. Joshin told Fisher to kill a queen. He would need to visit the darkest place. And, kind of weird. We still don't know what that means. But the worst part is it never actually got specified who the queen is.
Meanwhile, back in Almontreath, Saeris is dealing with the aftermath of everything that happened in the library. So, Foley was revealed to still be alive, Alget tried to limit Saeris' access to knowledge, and we started seeing Saeris finally push back against the court a little more directly.
Very minimally. Very.
Minimally?
But she barely did it. She should be doing more. She should be
little baby steps, okay?
Way more.
It's a process. Baby steps.
Probably a lot less than baby steps. Little mouse steps. But we also learned a lot more about alchemy and the runes that are on Saeris. Saeris has access to text about elemental runes now, and it's becoming a lot clearer that her magic isn't just unstable, it's a part of something really old and mysterious.
And then on Fisher's side of the story, he and Carrion managed to survive the demon venom and recover the silver from the bell tower, which means part of their mission in Zilvaren has already succeeded.
But emotionally, things shifted too. Fisher and Carrion finally had that conversation about Saris and where they stand, which it felt like a really big turning point for the relationship between Fisher and Carrion because Fisher could finally move on from his doubts in his head.
I'm sure he let out a massive sigh of relief or a breath
Oh,
of fresh air relief when that was all put out in the open. And then we ended the section with something that might be even more important.
Yeah, that was so unexpected.
It was very unexpected.
So unexpected. But we learned more about Tal's past and his connection to Everlane, and the decision that led him to kneel before Sanithroth's throne instead of staying in the Winter Palace.
So by the time we reach chapter 21, it's fair to say both sides of the story are sitting on some pretty big questions.
Is the prophecy about a queen pointing towards Madra, or could it be someone else, another queen, maybe? We don't know.
Is Fisher becoming something more dangerous the deeper he gets into Zilvaren?
Hmm. And maybe the biggest question going into this section are Saris and Fisher actually moving towards each other now, or towards something much bigger than either of them possibly could understand?
So let's find out. Let's get into chapter 21.
Chapter 21 opens back in Zilvaren with Fisher waking up after everything that happened beneath the bell tower.
And one of the first things we learn is that he's completely healed, which is interesting because his healing seems tied to the dream he shared with Saeris. If you know,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah. Right, because after that dream, he now has a dagger tattoo on his leg, which seems to be kind of a physical mark left behind from that connection with him and Saris.
Meanwhile, homie Carrion, he looks terrible.
Yep. So Saris completely healed Fisher, like all over. He has no bumps, no bruises, no nothing.
Through the
But
dream.
yeah, through the dream. But Carrion, he's basically covered in hives, and he looks like some kind of magical pox that he has or something. It's crazy, but he looks rough.
So, if you'll remember, they are in Carrion's apartment, which is where they were healing at. So, while they're in Carrion's apartment, Fisher notices something on the walls that triggers a memory. There are drawings everywhere, detailed drawings of Carrion's parents, Fae warriors, Fae different creatures, landscapes, dragons, sprites, you name it. And one of these drawings brings Fisher back to a moment from the past.
We get this flashback to the night Carrion's father died. Bellicon had found Amelia Dianthus in the bathhouses in the lower level of the Winter Palace. Bellicon had been carrying her husband, Ruik's god sword, Bitterbane, in his hands. The blade was dripping with blood, and she had known her husband was dead.
And so she runs. She flees to the palace, gives her child to Fisher's father to hide and protect, and that memory was something Fisher later learned from his mother after they escaped the palace to Kalish.
So, why do you think Carrion has all these drawings? Do you think he could be like documenting history, memories, or why?
So I know you don't want to hear it.
Good God. Tell
when
me.
I was reading, when
You're
I,
gonna say it anyways.
when I was reading the scene, I was like, is it possible that Carrion has like a magic ability to see the future like Fisher's mom? Like maybe he's having dreams and he's like recreating those dreams in drawing forms?
That's a good theory. We
You're
know
not
what
sounding
it
too
is.
convinced.
I thought we already knew what it was. I thought they were like pictures that he got from somebody. Didn't they explain it? I forgot.
I don't think they said that.
But I
I
think
think
he
Fisher goes
mentioned
on
where
to
he got them.
No, Fisher said that he assumed Carrion was drawing these things because he longed for his people. He knew he was a fae. He couldn't tell that to anybody. So he was drawing these landscapes of the Avelia and
So he
drawing
doesn't
fae
forget.
warriors. Not he was a baby when he left. He didn't remember this stuff anyways. I think it's just him wanting to feel
No.
connected to the
Yeah,
fae.
that's what he was. He was copying it from books.
Yes. He was
That's what
copying
it
from books.
was.
So my theory isn't
Correct.
probable, but in the moment, this is what I was thinking.
Okay, that's a good thought. That is a good thought. Kind of.
What do you think about the drawings? Do you have any thoughts on them?
I just thought it was kind of like a side thing in the book. I really didn't look too much into it like you do. I was just like, oh, cool.
It's kind of sad if you think about it.
That I don't look
The
into
fact
it.
that the fact that he was longing so hard for his people that he was trying
But he
to
knew
do
he couldn't go
this.
back.
Yeah, and that's like
Yeah.
that's why it's sad. He's drawing these things to like feel connected to something that he didn't think he'd ever probably be reunited with.
It's sad how Carrion is living amongst humans, right?
Mhm.
Like, everybody he knows is humans, and he knows he's gonna live for thousands of years.
Right.
And he can't get too attached to these humans because he knows that they're gonna die.
Mhm.
Sad. And he
It
doesn't
is
have
very sad.
anybody around him, Fae, just like him, that he can kind of build a deeper bond with because he knows all the rest of them are just gonna die off.
Yeah, I agree. It's a pretty sad
That
thing.
really sucks. I would have gone and freaking pulled that sword. You know what I mean?
He wasn't an alchemist.
Oh, it's only alchemist. Oh, because it's you're right. You're right. Never
Yes,
mind.
'cause it's
Never mind.
Quicksilver.
Never mind. I
Otherwise, I'm
tried.
sure he would have. So,
Fine.
back in Amontreath, we shift back to Saeris, and almost immediately she's forced to explain something uncomfortable to Lorith.
Yep, which was that dream that she had with Fisher.
And the dream wasn't just symbolic, it was physical enough that it left real marks on both of them, which we won't go into too many details on. If you know anything about Romantasy, you know why.
And finally, after getting some sleep, Saeris notices something about herself. She's faster, she's more controlled, she's better during training, which suggests that her powers are continuing to develop. And it also means that Foley was correct about her needing the
Mhm.
sleep.
Yes. And she also realizes that her sword, Solus, if you'll recall, it's Fisher's father's sword, Solace, whatever.
Solace.
So it's Fisher's father's god sword that Fisher gave to Saeris. Anyways,
Well, Saeris
she
pulled it
has.
out.
I know,
It
but
chose
like,
her.
yes, but Fisher verbally told her that's
Yes.
your sword now. That's what I
Permission.
mean.
Yeah, okay. I
Yeah.
get it.
So she also realizes that the sword is actually too large for her fighting style. It's too heavy for her. So she starts considering reforging it into something that fits her better. And I'm excited to
Mhm.
see what she comes up with.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
I feel
But
like the traditional face or fantasy style, I feel like she's going to go with two daggers.
daggers, I was thinking the exact same. But I feel like it might be too basic for Saeris. I don't know.
It's
Maybe.
like, you think she's still going to have a one-handed weapon? Like a double-handed sword?
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like it probably
She's
will
not
be
going to
daggers.
forge a
That's-
shield.
that's
She has an
immediately-
alchemist shield now.
Well, yeah, but that's immediately what my thoughts went to as well, was the daggers. But I feel like this author is not very basic, so she might give us something that we didn't think of. I don't know.
She's
We'll
not
see.
very basic. She's
I don't think
literally
so.
copying mating tattoos from
What are you talking
Akatar.
about? Mating tattoo? No, I
I
thought
mean,
that
I
was
don't
like a
know
whole
which book was published
That's a whole
sooner.
fantasy thing, girl. It's just like a
Okay,
fantasy
I've never
thing.
seen it in any other book that I've personally read.
Look, you don't have to copy. It might not be copying, but she could be
Okay.
taking references from a bunch of other books and making it her own. But I don't think she's very basic. Like, I feel like this book is very new versus other books that I've
Okay.
read in the past. I don't know. Whatever. Anyways, where was I?
We were talking about the sword.
Yes, her reforging the sword feels kind of symbolic in a way. She's literally reshaping the weapon she carries. And it also means that she's kind of finding herself in a way.
Back in the library, and Foley gives Saeris an unexpected lesson. He explains that the paper stargazer birds are incredibly trusting, and that trust makes them dangerous because if someone wanted something like a strand of Saeris's hair for a witchy potion, the birds might bring it to them. So you need to be on guard, even when it comes to the paper stargazer birds.
Yeah. So the birds just trust everybody and think that they're doing no wrong. So that was an example that was kind of like Yikes. But even something so innocent inside the library could actually become a weapon against her. So she needs to just kind
Mhm.
of watch her surroundings at all times.
And I don't think I actually added this in our notes, but we do see that at the end of the chapter that this is brought up in, that he's kinda telling the truth because as she's leaving the library, a little bit of a tangent, while she's leaving the library, a stargazer bird actually goes up to the back of her neck and, like, slices her skin, and she's bleeding, and so I instantly thought, "Okay, maybe he was telling the truth, maybe they were taking her blood for something or whatever." But it turns out that it was almost like trying to get her attention and show her something, but she was like, "I ain't got time for that right now, like, they'll be there later." And as
Hmm.
she stepped out of the library, it tried to follow her, but it immediately died as it exited the library, and she tried to bring it back in and, of course, it didn't, like, revive itself. What'd you think about that scene? Did you think anything into it or no?
I mean, I definitely thought it was odd, right?
Mhm.
Like,
The timing of it
obviously,
too.
so in my opinion, my like little theory in the moment, if you will, was that she was going to pick up the dead bird because it's paper, right? I thought it was going to have like a message written or
Mhm.
something, but it didn't. So,
Yeah.
I mean, my theory was wrong. What
I
did you think?
wonder if that'll come back into play at some point in time because it seems like a very
Yeah,
odd thing to mention if
yeah,
not, but I guess we'll see what happens with that.
for sure.
So, while she's in the library, Saris's runes flare again, and Foley studies them. He identifies something important. One of the symbols, which is an arrow bisecting a circle, is the rune for Quicksilver. And according to Foley, it's always the first rune to awaken and it's the hungriest.
Which implies that the power Saeris has been using all this time may actually be the power connected to the Quicksilver, and that she's also had this rune that's signifying an alchemist shield, and it's something that all alchemists used to have.
And Foley also confirms something huge, which I kind of already assumed. Her power didn't suddenly appear. She's had it since birth. So basically, she's been an
Yeah.
alchemist since birth, which I think was kind of always insinuated, but
Hmm.
he like confirmed it for her,
Yeah,
which we
but
also see
she's
brought later back up in a few chapters.
exactly, but she's just now learning how to kind of use it and listen to the voices. And we saw that in book one where she was slowly getting better and better and better at what she does. But yeah,
Mhm.
very interesting. So back in Zilvaren, Fisher and Carrion continue searching for Hayden. They eventually track him down in the second ward, but Hayden already knows who Fisher is, or at least he thinks he does. There are flyers circulating around the city labeling Fisher as the Butcher of Zilvaren.
According to Amadra's propaganda, Fisher
Mhm.
murdered prisoners who were about to be pardoned, and one of those prisoners was supposedly Saeris, which is kind of crazy. Like, can you imagine being her brother and thinking that the guy standing in front of you is the one who killed your sister?
It makes sense with the dagger now, doesn't it? Hayden believes that Fisher killed Saeris, and he thinks her body was dragged through the city as proof. He thought he saw her, or at least us as the reader thinks he saw her, but he then explains that he just saw a drawing of her. So he doesn't actually know if it was her or not.
It's giving he's kind of dumb because
He
why
believes
are you
anything he hears. He believes all the
literally so
propaganda.
gullible, so gullible?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Saeris on the paper? Duh, she must be dead.
It looks
No
kinda like her. Her
questioning.
nose might not be
Right, like,
right,
if
but
you
it's
squint a
Saris.
little bit, it does look like Saris. But now there are wanted posters for both Fisher and Carrion around the city, and the reward for bringing them in is a year's worth of water for whoever captures them, which is a big deal in this area of the city.
Yeah, it really just tells you how desperate the people are in Zilvarin, and we even get to see a scene where we're listening to the people look at the wanted poster, and they're like, "Ugh, like, who is this? Blah blah blah," and then it goes, "But there's a reward," and everybody goes, "A reward?" So you just like see how desperate people are to try to have a better life, which is sad.
And as a reminder, their daily allowance, at least in the third ward, is only 8 ounces a day
Yeah,
in
which is
a city
excessive.
with two burning suns.
Yeah. No
So,
showers, no
desperation.
baths. Yeah.
So Essentially, they get spotted, and the
Mhm.
guardians, Madra's guardians, get called towards them, so they're chasing, and chasing ensues. So as they move through the city, they stumble onto something horrifying. It's a group of girls in the square, and all of them were 14 years old. It's a cleansing day. Every month, the guardians take the marked girls to the palace to be sterilized.
Yeah. And this is something that Saeris had mentioned to Fisher before, but seeing it happen makes it very real for him.
When the guardians chasing Fisher arrive in the square, he loses all control. He unleashes his magic, which is a crazy amount of magic.
Yeah.
Knives made from his power begin tearing through the guardians over and over and over. So by the time it's over, all said and done, he has killed around 50 guardians in like a split second.
Yeah, which is insane considering the fact that this is not his city. Like, he barely has any power in this city. So it just kind of shows the madder you are, the more power you can use, which is crazy. But Carrion eventually pulls him out of it. But the moment says a lot about Fisher and how strong he is.
And I do want to pause for a second because something about the scene actually changes how I feel like you could look at Fisher.
I see. What are you thinking?
So, Fisher didn't just defend himself in this scene. It started out that way, but he wiped out an entire group of guardians. And the book is really intentional about the number two. It isn't just one or two people, like, we're talking about dozens of people.
Yeah, true. And if you take a step back and look at it like from the outside, this is the exact kind of moment that propaganda gets built around, especially in that city.
Yeah, because from Fisher's perspective, he just stopped something horrific from happening. But from the citizens of the city's perspective,
Yeah. So he did lose his glamour, so they are seeing a powerful Fey warrior walk into the public square and massacre 50 guardians. That's crazy.
yeah, and this makes the nickname we saw earlier, the Butcher of Zilvaren, make a lot more sense given the context of the situation.
And here's the question for you. Do you think the story is showing us Fisher possibly becoming a hero or the beginning of someone the world will eventually fear, especially considering all the propaganda that's going on in that world?
I think the interesting thing is those two things can look exactly the same depending on who's telling the story. And we
Mhm.
do know in different story contexts and even in real life, like history is subjective
Yeah.
based on who is telling the history.
It's who you're getting your facts from because they might not be 100% correct.
Exactly.
But the other thing that makes this moment interesting is that Fisher still has a lot of magic left afterwards, which means we haven't actually seen the full extent of his power and what he can do. Which, what?
Yeah, and to circle
Insane.
back to what you said earlier, he's not supposed to have access to this much magic because he
Exactly.
doesn't come from Yuvelia. So what
Mhm.
changed? Like, why does he have access to this ungodly amount of power? Because also, as we'll see, did I mention this already? Yeah, as we'll see, he also clouds the in. I don't know if I mentioned this later or not, so I'm going to
I
mention it
think,
here.
yeah, I think we've already mentioned, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. We'll see. But
He
just say it.
clouds the entire city in shadows.
Yeah, I'm
Like,
glad.
not just the 3rd ward, not the 2nd ward, the entirety of the city is cloaked in shadows,
And
and
these
it's
people
pitch
have
dark.
never seen darkness before. Have
Exactly,
never, because they
exactly.
have two suns. They do not have a sun and a moon. They have two suns. They have never seen darkness. So this is insane for them. I'm sure
Right.
they're like finally out of this heat.
But also, you have to imagine it's probably terrifying to them. It's a
Probably,
very
but
unknown situation. They don't know what it's coming from.
yeah,
They've been hearing from birth, like, random rumors about magic, and it doesn't exist, and all
yeah,
of a sudden, it's dark outside, and there's shadows, and there's fae people, and anyways,
yeah.
so just keep
It's
all
very
that in the back
scary.
of your mind as we move forward because the next few chapters start revealing something else about this world and
Yeah.
about Saris's powers or power.
In Amarantreth, Saris is working in the forge. Say
You
something.
will you will never say that word correctly.
Hold on. Back in
Hang on, I'll wait.
Amarantreth.
There you go. Proud of
Yeah,
you.
I got it the second time this time. Anyways, Saeris is working in the forge, trying to bargain with the Quicksilver. And that's when the Hazrax appears. Okay, I was terrified when I was reading this. I was like, oh no, this thing is about to murder her.
Uh-huh. Do you want to
But
give us a reminder who Hazrax is?
yeah, he's the creepy looking creature
Yeah.
that Malcolm had made a bargain with to get him
We
to
don't
stay
know that at
there.
the time, though.
I thought we did. I thought we do know that because I
I
believe
thought he was a vampire.
no, it told us in the first couple of
Oh,
chapters that
okay.
Malcolm had made a bargain with him to keep him there because Malcolm was afraid of his power, or at least we assume
Okay.
that that's what it was. That's what the book insinuates, that Malcolm was afraid of his power, so he wanted him under him instead of,
Mhm.
you know, outside
Okay.
trying to fight him, kind of thing.
I couldn't remember that completely, but okay.
But yeah, I believe Malcolm was really afraid of the Hazrax, but he would never admit to that, obviously.
Gotcha.
But yes, he is the Lord of Midnight, the Hazrax, who almost never speaks. And he never leaves the Hall of Tears, or at least that's the rumor.
Yes, but here he is in the forge,
Hmm.
and he starts talking. He explains that he has read the book Algid gave Saeris many times, and he tells her something important, or gives her like an ominous message, I guess. He says, blood magic is dangerous because every time you use Quicksilver to make a relic, she gives up a piece of herself.
And we
And the blood
learn,
magic portion of this is because every time she bargains with the Quicksilver, she also gives it like a little prick of her blood. So she's
yeah,
giving blood away, which is the blood magic. Yeah. And she's always offering up like a memory or
a
something like that. So that's
song,
what he
or yeah.
means by, yeah, that's what he means by she's giving up a piece of herself every time as well.
Yeah, she has to bargain with it every time. She's not controlling it, it's controlling her, which is what he's
Exactly.
telling her. But we learned something really surprising. Hazrax isn't loyal to the Blood Court. He once made a deal with Malcolm that he would observe the court, and in exchange, Malcolm would receive one favor per year. Because this man, or I don't know, it's a creature, not a man. I don't know what it is. But he's powerful. He is really
He
powerful.
is.
We learned this because he stopped gravity, I think, right?
He did. He stops gravity and what did he do? I wrote it in my notes. He stops gravity. Okay. He can put out a sun, so he can make darkness.
Mm-hmm.
He can untether gravity, which means he can stop gravity, and he can be in many places at once, and he can see through the eyes of others. Just probably among just a little bit of the powers he probably has others, but
Just a
even
couple
those
things.
alone,
Just
just
a
a
couple
couple
little
little
things he
tiny
can
things.
do.
It's no big deal.
Biggie.
So he also wants to make the same arrangement with Saeris now, except he's not really giving her a choice.
Yeah. Do you think you would make that deal with the Hazrax?
So I think that she handles it very well. She counters the offer by saying, because he says, well, it's not really an option. Like, you need to make this deal. I have to remain here.
Mm-hmm.
And so she counters it by saying, I'll make the bargain, but I want the option to renew it every year because I don't want to be tied into a contract essentially with you for the rest of my life,
Until
which
death, yeah.
is smart. And we see her kind of starting to, I think through her bargains a little bit more.
Like with
And
the.
I like that. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's making her seem a little smarter about it. Um, but yeah, on one hand, having someone that powerful on your side can be valuable. But on the other hand, we also have no idea what he really wants from her. He doesn't really
Yeah.
say.
So I want to pause right here and talk about theories.
What about theories? Do
Are
you have
you
a
think
theory?
I have a end of book theory?
Okay. Spill,
So
please.
we are slowly learning more about the Lords of Midnight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning of the book, they kind of made it a picture like they're all so bad and scary and like stay away from
Mm-hmm.
them kind
But
of
they're
thing.
really not.
And especially Tal. Tal, I believe, told her like stay away from them. But they're actually being very nice and very helpful. Yes, they have a little bit of an attitude here and there, but like they're really nice to her and they're kind of
Mm-hmm.
being helpful. So I don't know. I feel like at the end, possibly we might see Tal turn into the bad guy, and then the Lord of Midnight, well, the other ones, kind of do like a little battle sort of thing. I believe this is my theory. I believe at the end.
Hey, I'm on board because I've been getting you to try to think Tal is the bad guy this whole
True,
time.
true, true, true,
So
true.
anything you're pointing in that direction, sign me up.
But yeah, so I'm thinking like they're all gonna be on Saeris' side, and then they're gonna have to like fight Tal and like Belicon and Madra and all of them at the end. I feel like it's gonna be like boop boop boop. You know what I mean? I believe Tal is on their side.
You think Tal is in cahoots with Belicon and Madra?
This is
Like a
where my
little bit of a
brain is
double
going.
agent?
It's possible.
Interesting.
I don't know. I just kind of thought about this when I was reading this chapter because I was like, so Alget's nice, the Hazrax is nice, they're not trying to hurt her, they're being nice to her, like,
Hmm,
and Tal wanted her to stay away from them. I
very
don't know.
interesting.
Maybe
I
he
guess we'll
doesn't
find
want them
out.
teaming up against
Maybe
him.
not. I like your mind.
Mm-hmm. And I do also, I'm very curious about Tal wanting to rip apart their bond. I feel like there's a deeper meaning to that Foley knows that
Yeah,
we don't
because
know.
Foley even mentioned, because Saeris brought that up to Foley, and
Mm-hmm.
he even mentioned seeming a little surprised that he would want to do that. He was like, let me guess, he wanted to disavow you as well, because I
Yeah,
guess he's disavowed Foley.
Foley.
So yeah, I don't know. I think there's more to that too.
I don't know. It's giving Tal as the bad guy, so I guess we'll see.
I guess we'll see. So while Saeris is in the forge, after the conversation with Hazrax, she starts unraveling a little bit. So she starts literally lighting up, like her whole entire body this time, not just her hands, are lighting up from the runes that are flaring up on her body. And so she
Mhm.
starts freaking out. And so what does she do? She's like, I need to go to the Quicksilver pool immediately.
I think
And
it was like her natural because she said like the only thing I can do is run, and I think it kind of naturally led her there. I don't think it
yeah,
was
I was
her
like,
thought process. Yeah.
no, I know. It was more like the flight instinct,
Yeah,
fight or flight.
it was her first instinct to run there, I think because the Quicksilver was trying to push her there. But yeah, she's running to the Quicksilver pool and her power is burning through her. Like it feels like she's going to explode. But instead of resisting it, she decides to open herself up to it. So here she is at the pool. She's burning alive. She steps into the pool without a relic, which is really dangerous to do, by the way. You're supposed to have a relic at all times because you never know with Quicksilver. But the Quicksilver rises. It's twisting all around her body and it begins testing her will. I think she mentions it like crawling through her throat. Like it's
Oh,
all
yeah.
over her.
And in her.
In her. Yes, it's everywhere.
It tells her something chilling. Well, it tells her many things that are very ominous,
Yeah.
but it also tells her something chilling. Every alchemist must have something they fear losing. And in the end, that fear will destroy them, and then it throws her from the pool. She hits the wall and she blacks out.
Basically, during the entire time she was in the pool, it was kind of testing if she was good enough or not to be an alchemist. And in my mind, I think this is what seals the runes. I'm guessing. I don't know. Because the
I think she kind
Hazrax
of had
is.
she
Didn't he
had
mention
that
something
thought
about sealing the
process.
runes? I think the Hazrax mentioned he knows how to seal the runes, but he couldn't tell her. Or was it Foley? It
Yes,
was one
because
of
it wasn't
them.
I think it was Hazrax. He says it's not
Yeah,
my business to tell you. You have to figure that out on
exactly.
your own. And in the
Exactly.
moment when Saris is like fighting the Quicksilver during her little struggle here,
Mm-hmm.
I think she mentions that she says something about like, oh, maybe this is how I seal it. I need
Yeah.
to be brave because
She
Fisher
needs to
entered
be
the Quicksilver.
accepted by the Quicksilver to
Yeah.
seal it, I think.
Yes, because Fisher entered the Quicksilver when he was a kid, and that's without a relic, and that's why he has Quicksilver like running through his body because, like you said,
Mhm.
it's dangerous.
Yeah.
But she thinks that I'm an alchemist, and in order for me to be accepted and have this working bond with the Quicksilver, I need to go in without
A
a
relic.
relic and trust it, trust the process, if you will.
Exactly, and I think that will also help with her being able to just mend it and work with it itself without having to talk to it and make bargains and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I
hopefully
think so
this will
too.
fix all of those
Or at
little...
least be, like, the starting process to that
Exactly.
relationship.
Yeah. Agreed. So we're gonna cut back in Zilvaren. Fisher and Carrion escape into Elroy's forge. Elroy. We know Elroy. We talked about Elroy, I think, in the last episode. We're like, where's Elroy?
No, literally. I
We
wasn't
found Elroy!
expecting Hayden and Elroy to pop up within, like, a chapter of each other.
Me neither. You know what's Wait, we didn't talk about the death, I don't think, of Carrion's family member.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Person. I don't think we mentioned that. I don't remember her name.
Gracia
One of
Swift?
One of Carrion's family members died during this whole thing, but
It was his
they...
only surviving
right.
family member. It's the
That helped
family
him.
line that was tasked with guarding him.
Yeah.
So basically, every time one of them would have a child and that child grew up, they would be tasked with, like, being in charge of Carrion's safety. It was just like a constant, like, feed of guardians. The last remaining one died while they were in Zilvaren in midst of all of this.
Yeah. But Hayden went to Carrion and he was like, you need to see this person, like they passed away. And in my mind, I was thinking it's Elroy. I'm like, oh my God, not Elroy. That's immediately who my mind went to. I don't know if that was...
I
if you did that.
didn't.
No, you weren't
I
okay.
immediately thought it was his guardian.
Oh.
I don't think that... I mean, it had never really mentioned before that Carrion and
I
Elroy
agree.
had, like, a massive relationship.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just that's the only other person that I knew in Zilvaren, so
Yeah.
my mind just immediately went to that. But
Which makes
anyways, they went and escaped into Elroy's forge, and Elroy kind of admits something a little bit shocking. He's known about the Fae his entire life. His family had been tasked with keeping secrets, never speaking about Fae, never discussing magic, and never revealing what they knew. And he wants Fisher out of his shop. He wants him gone. He wants him out because he knows who he is, and he doesn't want to protect him from all the guards outside.
To say, he knows that he's a Fae warrior. He doesn't know
Yeah.
that he's connected to Saeris necessarily.
Correct.
He just
Not
saw
yet.
the shadows covering the entire city, and he's like, I know you're a Fae. They're looking for you. You got to get out, bud.
Exactly.
And, you know, because he has his own secrets that we find out about. But what was I going to say? I was going to say something I felt like was important. And one of the other rules that Elroy was tasked with was he was not allowed to speak to Carrion about knowing who Carrion was, but he also knew who Carrion was the entire time, which is also kind of sad.
Crazy. Like, poor
Yeah.
Carrion. He felt like he had nobody
literally
to
was
talk
all
to.
alone, and he could have had somebody in his corner.
Exactly. But
I mean,
at the
I
end of the
understand
day,
the thought process. But
it's not safe for either one of them because if
No.
somebody overheard them talking or something like that about the Fae or about, you know, who Carrion is, they could have both ended up in a very bad situation. So I get it.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting because this whole situation kind of implies that there are other families like Elroy's family and Carrion's family that have their own secrets about magic potentially and have been quietly protecting knowledge for generations. Just makes me wonder what else is in this city because as we know, Zareth, the god of chaos, already mentioned that there are other alchemists in Zilvaren. And I'm just thinking right now out loud.
Oh, good one.
I wonder if they're gonna have to go around and find like hidden alchemists because we know they need to make a crap ton of Quicksilver relics. So maybe the whole journey is Saeris learning how to make them so that she can teach other alchemists to make them so that everyone can flee the rot. Endgame.
That's a good idea.
Bam. Don't need to finish reading the book.
That's really smart, actually. Okay.
I like
well,
that.
I like both of our theories. I feel like I feel like your theory is more third book.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's no way they can
still has a
get
lot
all
to
that
learn.
done. Yeah,
And I don't even know how they'd go about finding other alchemists until Madra's dead, so.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Maybe we're giving the author some ideas. We'll see.
I'm pretty sure the third book's already written, so probably
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I think it comes out next year. Maybe.
Miss Girl just started writing Fourth Wing 4, so I doubt it.
Beauty takes time.
It does. But anyways, with Elroy.
Tangent over.
Tangent over. He finally accepted Fisher and allowed them to stay in the forge and hide from the Guardians because he was talking about Saeris and how he knows Saeris and how he wants to protect her. So I believe Elroy has a little soft spot for Saeris, as do most of them. But he
I
then
mean, he's like a
leads.
father to her, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he also mentions that he knew Saeris had some abilities as well, which was crazy. He said that whenever she would walk into the forge, sometimes things would rattle on the walls and he just knew. So that's why he wanted her to kind of be out in the world a little bit so
He
she's
picked her
not.
out for her protection.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's what it was. But Elroy leads them to a hidden door down into a chamber where they discover something incredible, something crazy. A huge pool of Quicksilver right there. Just there in Elroy's freaking hidden door forge thing. Like, what?
It's actually the largest pool of Quicksilver that Fisher has ever seen. And Elroy explains that for years, he and his family and all the blacksmiths or forge masters, metal workers before him have refined pieces of metal that come into the forge that contain Quicksilver, and they store the Quicksilver underneath this trapdoor. And when Saeris was captured, all the tiny little pieces of metal turned into this liquid Quicksilver pool.
Mm-hmm. And as they're talking about Saeris, the pool suddenly explodes. And realizing what that means, Fisher, Carrion, and Hayden jump into the Quicksilver because they know exactly who must be on the other side. And they even mention she's probably in trouble.
All that to say, this section of the book really feels like a turning point, not because everything explodes into action, but because we're finally starting to see how the larger world fits together.
And the story is widening a ton. We're learning more about the history of Evelia and hidden alliances between families and the deeper mechanics of alchemy.
And at the center of all of this is just Saeris, who is slowly
Just
realizing
Saeris?
just Saeris, who is slowly realizing that the power she has isn't just unusual. It might actually be something the world hasn't seen in a very long time.
Meanwhile, Fisher is dealing with the consequences of the world he grew up in, because the more we see Zilvaren, the clearer it becomes why rebellion is starting to grow.
Both of them are moving towards something bigger, even if neither of them fully understands what that is yet.
Mm-hmm. And that feels like a good place to pause for today before the story pushes even further. And we go to chapter 28. Unfortunately, I accidentally read ahead a tiny bit, so y'all stay tuned for next week's episode because it's going to be crazy.
Because if these chapters are setting the stage for what's coming next, I have a feeling things are about to escalate pretty quickly. Because I think we're officially at the 50% in the book.
Are we? Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Thought we were a little past 50, but maybe you're right.
We're going very slowly, but I think we're getting.
We're turtling it.
Hopefully, we're
It's a
going to
lot
ramp
of
it up.
information. It really, really
It
is.
is, especially when you dissect everything.
Yeah, every theory, every little detail. But thank you so much for hanging out with us today here on BookTeaTalk. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next upload where we continue working our way through Brimstone, and it's going to be a good one next week. It's going to be really good.
I actually didn't write this in there, but we are going to be reading, hopefully, chapters 28 through 39. That's only 10 chapters, but it is 150 pages.
Only.
It's 150 pages, though.
We just read 5 and we were struggling. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to finish this up in 2 more weeks so that we can start the second book of Throne of Glass.
True. I do want to read the second book, too. I agree.
But as always, please keep spoilers past what we discussed today out of the comments so that everyone can experience the story in real time with us.
And you can always follow us at BookTeaTalk across all platforms for any updates, bonus clips, and more bookish fun.
Period. All right, bye guys.